Good morning. I'm Kevin Paton from Arcola, Saskatchewan, and I run an antique store in an early 1900s Ford garage. This is a really big area that I'm working out of. This old garage is approximately 6,000 square feet. So people coming in from the street don't really understand what they're walking into. They think they're just going to walk into a little antique store, and they really get their eyes open. Like when you walk in just the front door, I've got one good sized room that's set up with just a diverse selection of smalls, I'll call it. And then they'll sneak into the next room, and I call it my flea market room. It's kind of a setup of tables that I used to take to flea markets. It really is a bunch of smalls. And then they get into the large back shop. It's filled right to the rafters. I try to decorate it and keep it organized. In the back, there's some huge windows that I was going to close up for insulating purposes, but I've got them wide open and the natural light comes through. And I've got it, all the stained glass in that area. My back alley area where I have a 53-foot sea can that's full of, I call it architectural salvage, doors, windows, and a lot of my extra stuff. But everybody wants to go in there. I says, oh, you got to watch your step, but everybody wants to get in there. It's just the thrill of the hunt for them too. And then I have like an outside fenced area. I call it Rusty Things, and it's just full of wagon wheels and wash tubs and just anything that isn't going to get damaged by sitting outside. And in the summer months, it's one of the busiest places. Like they just love to go through that stuff. And there's room for a lot of people in here, and at times we get up to 20 or 30 people here looking at a time. So they've got lots of room to stretch their wings and grab things and touch things. And yeah, it makes for a great spot. What do people get from visiting here? A lot of them are getting a little treasure, a momentum of their childhood. Other ones are adding to their collection. Other ones are just a good feeling, just about remembering. One of the best things is when somebody asks me for something really odd or rare, and I'll say, yeah, it's right over here, I got one. And they just about fall over. And I've had people in tears, I've had people hugging me. That's a good feeling. I'll see a lot of times couples come and the husband's there, he's really not interested into the stuff. Well, he starts looking at the old vehicles. All of a sudden he wants to talk about the old garage. And sometimes it's the opposite, the man or the husband is here and his wife or kids want to see something. But I love socializing with them and hearing their stories and learning from them. And they're learning lots from me. I get a lot of positive feedback, on Facebook and whatever, and said, oh, we had such a good time here. Just standing there listening to this guy tell stories was worth the price of admission, which there is no price of admission. What I enjoy about it, it's the thrill of the hunt, finding something I've never had and figuring out what it was. But there's another whole aspect to it as well. Like now that I have the store, I meet so many interesting people. Not only the people that come to my store that want to buy stuff, but it's the people that call me, that want me to come to their homes. And I'm buying their life's collection of things, and it's quite emotional at times. And I'm pretty good at sympathizing, and I do sympathize, but at least it's getting to a new place and they understand that. So I'm basically finding these old things a new home. It does take a lot of work to get everything cleaned and fixed, but I absolutely enjoy it. Like I'm mechanical to start with. It passes the time for me. Even if I'm watching TV, I've usually got a project, taping a paddle, that I'm going to paint the next day, or gluing something together. And yeah, it's just my life. As my kids all grew older, they moved away, and I've got them in 3 provinces, and they've all got kids of their own, and we travel often to visit them. I never travel without a truck or trailer, and I know every dealer between Winnipeg and Kelowna. And they all know me. I've met so many people, and they've become friends. Just before this interview, I'm having to shut my phone off because I got 3 guys messaging me about things they want to sell or things they're looking to buy. And yeah, so they really have become friends. We visit all the time. When we're traveling, I just call ahead and we make a plan to meet, and it goes from there. As I mentioned, I'd retired and was continuing to collect, and I just always had in my mind that I wanted to do something like this. And when this building opportunity came along, it was perfect because it suits this business so well, and I needed this kind of space. And it wasn't a huge dollar. The old building, it is an old building, and it's only good for so many things. The building is a great setting for my antique business. It's a brick building with steel rafters, and just to see the building alone is something. But I've got it right full of all types of antiques. It has a lot of history. It's been built in 3 sections. The very front section was very early 1900s, so when there really were no cars. So you wouldn't call it a dealership back in those days. It was a machine shop and a repair shop. It was added on to, I'm going to say, in the 30s, and that's when the Ford dealership began. Ed Hanna was the fellow. He started out here as a mechanic. He ended up buying the business, and he ran a Ford Model A, Model T dealership here, and he ran this business for 53 years. He also had in the later years, he had a Ford tractor dealership. The back 2/3 of the building where I'm sitting right now was added in 1946, and kind of a cool story that I tell everyone. My wife's parents, who are still alive, they're both 93 years old, they just live 3 doors down, but they both came to a dance in this building before it was opened as a garage, the back 2/3 of it. So it makes for a really good story. The building has a lot of history for me as well. I grew up near here, and I remember coming here as a kid, my dad coming here for parts or whatever, and you could get a Coca-Cola out of the old Coke machine. When I graduated, I left home for a couple of years. I come back, I took mechanical training, and I worked as a mechanic in this garage, and I got my journeyman automotive papers working in this garage. So a lot of history for me. When my kids grew up, my oldest was quite mechanical. He started working here when he was 14 and worked through till he was done school. He moved away for a couple of years. He came back and he bought this building and built a building behind us in the back alley and ran a welding shop for a few years. So yeah, it has a lot of history, this building. I ended up buying it from him when he closed his welding business. Hi there, here we are at my shop. Come check it out. This room is full of mostly smalls. Right here is telephones, there's glassware. I sell a lot of salt and peppers. Even if you're not looking for anything, you just come for a visit at my store. Sometimes they feel like they want to buy something, they buy a set of salt and peppers. This is a good display. It was an old, came out of a library, heavy bookshelf, double-sided, and I sell a lot of stuff off there. It's just, it shows through the glass, and so we put lots of colorful things up there, and people like that. We've also got a nice collection of 1950s radios. They really aren't a big collector's item anymore, but these ones are awfully pretty, you know, and make for a nice design piece if nothing else. RCMP stuff is quite collectible. Things like that, I'm always looking for RCMP stuff because there's always other folks looking for it. This oak filing cabinet was original to the building. Fellow that used to own the building had it, and he was having a garage sale, and he called me. He says, "Hey Kevin, you should have this back in your store." So you're darn right, I bought it, and I use it for a lot of paperwork. In here, old photos like we talked about earlier. Another thing that I sell a lot of is tobacco cans. You know, some of them can get very pricey, but a lot of them are not pricey. And everybody has a memory of Grandpa smoking Black Cat cigarettes or whatever it might be. So I sell lots of that. Maybe hard to see, but I also have my complete collection of Saskatchewan automobile plates. They started in 1912, and you can kind of get a look at them there. So that's pretty much the end of this room. That's the first room you come to when you get in the store. This second room is what I call my flea market room. It's also got a lot of guy stuff in it, oil and gas, license plates, John Deere stuff. As I mentioned, I started out collecting and I went to flea markets. I would set up these set of 3 tables, take all my wares and peddle it there. But also while I was doing that, I was also doing a lot of buying. Met a lot of good people that I still buy off of. Everybody remembers the first car they had, or somebody's fixing up a car, and so they all get excited when they find a piece that they need. I also have lots and lots of architectural salvage, doors, windows, hardware. People are also very happy when they come across this stuff. They're fixing up an old house and they need that certain piece, and I've got it. They're happy. Oil and gas cans, big market for them. Lots of them come and go. Something here that's kind of interesting. They're railroad tie date nails. When the guys were building the railroads or fixing the railroads in 1931, they would have these nails, and every so often they would hammer that in there so they could go back there 10, 20, 30 years later and know how old that section of railroad ties is. And they're fun to collect. You know, it was the year I was born, it was the year I was married, or you want to collect them all. Keys and locks are something that are a lot of fun to collect, and 1,000 reasons that people seem to want them, and I have my share of keys. That's just about it for the flea market room. Little John Deere display. Everybody likes their John Deere stuff. Now we'll head out into the main garage area. Lots of people, when they get in here, they find these two rooms and then they discover that this is out there. That's when they get amazed. Because it really is quite large. It's a beautiful old brick building with steel rafters. I recently got this two-seater CCM bike. It draws lots of attention. I paid way too much money for it. I'll never sell it for what I paid, but I get a lot of enjoyment when somebody shows up and they ask me if they can go for a ride, and they do. I get a lot of good smiles. I seem to find lots of the old beacon barn-style lanterns, and there's quite a market for them. Everybody wants to decorate with them. So I've got a good selection. Little barn hooks too. They're hard to find without being broke, because most of the people, in order to salvage them, they snap them off the wall, but these ones are all good. My yardsticks, I get more reaction out of these things because it was back in the day, that's how you disciplined child. We never do that anymore, but everybody gets a good laugh out of it. Yeah. And back behind me is the stoneware. It's mostly Red Wing and Medalta. Medalta was made in Alberta, Red Wing was made in Red Wing, Minnesota. They weren't really in vogue for the longest time, but all of a sudden everybody seems to love stoneware, and I love it too, so I'm a good salesperson. And over in this direction, I've got a shelf. I call it the toy section. Well, anything like along that line seems to get put on that shelf, and there's certainly a good market for that. There's lots of toy collectors, and there's lots of people that just want something. Coca-Cola collectibles are really good. Most of this stuff is more modern, lower end, but Coca-Cola has advertised with things for over 100 years, and so some of their signage, which I kind of like, you know, it gets into the thousands of dollars. This stuff is just, you know, $5 and $10 stuff. Yeah, lots more jars and bottles and keychains and salt and peppers. Continuing back, now we're into this part of the building that was built in 1946. Pretty large garage for its time when you think about it. I also like gas pumps. This one kind of did up in a rat rod style. The guys nowadays, they're always fixing up the old Model Ts and making them look rustic, and this kind of goes hand in hand with that. Shell sign, that's a beauty. That would have been a light up sign, double-sided. I've got both sides. And here's a Case Eagle. These are very sought after as well. They were at all the old Case dealerships. Farm toys are another thing, just one more thing that people collect. I thought when all the old farmers got old and they were gone that would be the end of those, but boy, I was wrong. The young generation collects, it's a big deal, and I just seem to be able to pick them up. Lamps, again, easy to find, lots of them around, every household had them, but there's still a bit of a market for them. Everybody wants to decorate with one. I've got a fancy Eastlake wooden bedroom set, complete with the bed, dressers here, set of 6 matching press back chairs, and of course my favorite, the signs. This is another section, one of the last sections in the shop. I used to have a vehicle stored here, but they moved out, so I took well advantage of it and put more good old stuff in there. Lots of old picture frames. People love, there's 100 different things that they do with them. Lots of ceramic animals, I don't know what it is, but everybody have some memory of some animal or something they want to collect. Give you an idea of signs. I have these everywhere in the building. You know, oil and gas and tobacco are big. There's also a household like flour and such, but definitely the oil and gas. Coca-Cola is also another good one for signage. And I think that pretty much shows off the inside of the building. I've got my rusty things outdoor area that's just anything that can withstand the weather. I got wagon wheels and old garden gates and all that kind of stuff. How I started collecting, I think the first thing I can remember as a kid was keychains. They were just something that was cheap and easy, and I ended up with hundreds and hundreds of the darn things. And then there was the gas stations had a giveaway with hockey stickers, and collected them like crazy. Dad would have to go get $20 worth of gas here and then $20 worth of gas there, rather than filling it all up, because each time you went to the gas station you'd get these little cards. That was some of the earlier stuff that I collected. Everybody asks me, you know, what I like collecting the most, and well, that's a tough question because I just thoroughly love it all. But push comes to shove, I think I'd have to say I'm really proud of my full set of Saskatchewan automobile license plates. The first issued license plates for Saskatchewan were in 1912, and they go on through to 1979, where they became generic. I have the full set, just missing 1944, which was a sticker that you put on your windshield. Metal was rationed in the war, at the end of the war years, and they weren't allowed to have enough metal for license plates, so they issued stickers for that year. I'm missing that one, but it's big dollars, but I'll find it someday. I also really like old farm stuff. I'm a farm boy. I've got a fairly good collection of lightning rods, weather vanes, and lightning rod balls. And I have a bunch of barn cupola vents. They're the big metal items that are on top of a lot of the big barns. When you get them down, they look a lot different. They're huge, and people don't even know what they are, but a lot of people that do know what they are use them for garden decorations or you know, at the end of their driveway. I really like that sort of stuff. The other thing is oil and gas. I really like that. I'm ex-mechanic, and I buy and sell a lot of signs, and they have become very popular to all the collectors, the guys with man caves, and that really like that sort of thing. What got me into collecting? Well, that's a long story. My dad and both his brothers, they grew up in the Great Depression in the 1930s, and everything was saved, it seems. And it just kind of grew from there. Like, we always had old stuff and nothing was thrown away. And I don't know, I guess I learned to like that stuff, and yeah, I just became a collector, and been doing it all my life, it seems. So I grew up on a farm south of Arcola, moved away for a while, but I've spent most of my life here. I farmed and worked in the oil patch, and my dad was a historian. He had a photo museum. He collected old photos for a long time. We had 2 resident photographers in this town in the early 1900s. Both of them made a living as photographers, which is hard to believe, but very lucky for us as they recorded the new world being built and this town being built. We had indigenous communities near us, and they came to town to get their photos taken. And these are real photos, not made up. And my dad found a collection of glass negatives of these photos, and he spent years and years getting them developed and visiting relatives of these people, getting the stories. He ended up writing a book before he passed away. It's very interesting. We've sold a lot of them, and it has a lot of the local history, not so much the farming history, but more of the indigenous history. And I just kind of followed up on that. There are so many interesting photos, and once he got doing it, just kind of like my business, people find you, and they want somebody to take their photos because no one in the family wants them, or they don't know whose they belong to, and he continued to collect them, just like I collect all of these antiques. Everybody comes in my shop and wonders, where on earth do you find all this stuff? But I have a lot of fun searching or hunting for all of this stuff. I used to go to flea markets. As I built more and more inventory, it just became impossible to take anything to these flea markets. So I started just working out of my shop, and now they come to me, and often someone, probably 9 out of 10 people that come in here are looking to look around or to buy something, but 1 out of 10 wants to sell you something. And a lot of the older generation doesn't want to deal with the internet selling, and the auction sales have kind of dwindled. The old style auction sales have gone. So I end up buying a lot of estates from people, and I buy it all, and they're happy with that because they don't have to deal with it. It's a problem for them, right? I often buy the whole household, and that's why I have such a diverse amount of stuff. But it's not like all of that stuff gets sold back to another person. It's just individual pieces are getting bought up by somebody that remembers it having a kid, or how grandma had that hen on a nest candy jar and things like that. And I also sell to a lot of collectors, and I'm getting to know what people want. Like there's certain people collect glass, certain people collect farm machinery toys. There are so many different aspects. A lot of it ends up being decorated. People are decorating with it. And gardening, sell a lot of old tubs and things like that. Yeah, it's quite interesting. No one was seeing all this stuff, and it was hard for me to market it. And my wife was telling me, if you're going to have all this stuff, you don't want to become a hoarder. And I didn't want to become a hoarder, and I'm not a hoarder, but I do have a lot of stuff. But this gave me an opportunity to put it all in one spot. It's probably taking me 3 or 4 years to actually get it all here, because so much of it needs repaired, needs fixed, needs changed in some way before it's ready to hit the shop. So it's a lot of work. We're in my home garage / workshop now. A lot of the things that I buy need either cleaned or repaired, and a good portion of them show up here before they end up in the shop for sale. I spend countless hours out here. My only goal is that I keep it clean enough that I can get my wife's car in here. And 90% of the time, I can do that. I have lots of tools and hardware and a little bit of everything to be able to fix just about anything. Takes lots of paints, and I have a good selection of nuts and bolts and screws and everything I need. Tools, I got a bit of my grandkids and family stuff there, so it's not all about antiques. Here's a cool piece I picked up recently. It's a 1970s space helmet TV. Pretty unique. The one thing that I have always kept is the Black Cat cigarette sign collection above me here. One of the reasons I started collecting this stuff, well, it just has beautiful graphics, but my grandpa smoked Black Cat cigarettes. One other thing that I really like is weather vanes and lightning rods. And this is a little collection. They're hard to display on the rod. They take up so much room. So I end up putting them on the board like this. I've got enough to do another board. These can be quite pricey. This one was probably my pride and joy. It's still got the bullet holes in it, of course. And the guys like me, when they were kids, we shot them with our .22s. But nobody wanted a pig on their barn. That wasn't romantic, or it wasn't the thing. They all wanted a horse or a rooster or a cow. So these are awfully rare. I paid $600 for that silly thing. Call me crazy. Another thing I grew up with was Fisher-Price toys. There's a handful of them right here, and they made so many toys, and they are very collectible as well. So I got quite a few of them, but they're keepers for me. All my grandkids love them. And that's about it. I do have one last thing, is I've always wanted a 1970s phone booth. I've had a couple of the SaskTel blue ones with no door, but this one here was the style that was around when I was a kid. I've often wished that I had my house and my shop at the same spot. The neighbors must get sick of me because I go up and down between here and there 20 times a day, every day. What's the future for my antique store? I'm going to be 65 next year, and I'm still having so much fun with it. A lot of people count their steps and go to the gym or go golfing. Well, I really think I'm going to keep doing it, for the next 5 years anyways. I just look forward to finding more stuff, meeting more people, and it really seems to have mushroomed lately. It takes a while for everyone to get to know you. I'm getting more and more followers. Everyone seems to be telling their friends, and their friends tell a friend, and lots of ways to advertise your antique store in these days with the internet, and I certainly do that on my Facebook page and on all the buy and sell groups. But I'm a little old school too, so I just have the signs on the highway and thinking, well, is that the way to go in this day and age of electronics? But it is surprising how many people come off the highway after seeing those signs. They've become kind of iconic. I put them on all of my posts, just a picture of the sign. They're kind of an antique looking sign, just made out of old rough wood, and I hand painted them, and I decided I needed some fancy ones. So I got the sign shop to make me some nice sandwich board signs, and I tried them out there, but the wind seems to blow them over. So I reverted back to my old signs, and I guess that's the way it'll stay. I don't run any regular hours. I do post on the internet when I'm going to be open. I just put it out there that I'm open by appointment anytime that I'm around. So that works really good. I just live, in town, like 3 minutes away from here. So I can be down here 4 or 5 times on any given day. People always wonder, well, if I get you down here by appointment, what happens if we don't want to buy anything? I don't care. I have just as much fun showing this place off. And if you want to do your own thing, I always have 1,000 things to do here. The work never ends. So come on out anytime. There's lots to see. We also have all the old buildings. We had to shut the blinds and lock the door and park out back today because otherwise we wouldn't have had time to do this little interview.